Welcome to Ditch Auto. My name's Jerad, and today we're talking about the top 5 reasons why you would choose a Canon 80D over a Sony a6500 or maybe even the a6300. Now, I did another video where I talked about why you would want to choose the Sony over the Canon, so if you want to see the other side of this, make sure to check out that video. I'll make sure to link it up at the end of this video for you. The Canon 80D is a great camera. I was a Canon shooter for the first 10 or 11 years of my photography career. I started out with a Canon 20D, which was the extremely old great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, I think, of this camera. And it was a great camera at the time. And they've continued to improve the 80D or the D line or whatever you want to call it. Their I guess higher up consumer, not maybe prosumer, I don't know what you'd want to call it, line of cameras. So it's a great camera, and I want to talk to you about why you would choose this one over this one. So the first thing is going to be the thing that everybody's probably considering is the amount of available lenses. Now, Sony's been adding a ton of lenses, and there are a lot of lens options, and that gap is narrowing ever so quickly of the options that are available for the Sony. So this argument is almost gone and no longer valid because there are great lenses for the Sony mirrorless line of cameras. And there's more lenses available for the micro four thirds, the smaller crop sensor, which these are both crop sensor cameras, the crop sensor line of Sony cameras, than there are the full frame. So still lots of options, just with Canon, you still have more options, especially from third-party manufacturers. There's a lot more options there as well. So lenses are definitely a thing. Now, Canon lenses have always been great. You know, the Nifty 50, the reason that lens has that name and exists and has even other companies have came out with budget 50mm lenses is because Canon did it great first. Canon has a great 50mm lens. It also has great other range lenses, and they have a good range of lenses in all price points. There's, you know, the inexpensive line of lenses, which are good, not perfect, but they're decent lenses. And then there's kind of more midline lenses that are better. They add some features like maybe stabilization and some stuff like that. Then you have the kind of top of the line, the L series lenses, which are just timeless. I mean, they've been fantastic, and they just get better as they improve them. Canon definitely knows how to build lenses, and lenses is definitely a pro when it comes to shooting on the Canon 80D, because you get those lenses, you get the EF lenses, they work on the crop sensor cameras, they work on, maybe later on you're going to update or upgrade to a full frame camera, the lenses are interchangeable, and that's just really great. Whereas on the Sony platform, if you buy lenses that are not full frame lenses, this one happens to be a full frame lens, but if you buy lenses that are not full frame lenses, when you go to put them on your full frame Sony camera later, maybe because you upgrade, you're not gonna get full frame. The camera is gonna shrink that sensor down and use that lens the way that it was meant to be, that it was designed to be used, and you're not gonna get all of what you should get out of that camera. So, you buy a lens for Canon, and it's more likely going to be usable across all the platforms. Now, there are some lenses that are definitely better on crop sensor than full frame, like this lens here, this EFS 18-135. It's developed for this camera. You can definitely put it on a Canon 5D, Canon 1D, Canon 6D, but you're not gonna get, I think it's better designed for this. I mean, if you look even at the opening of the lens here, this is tiny. This sensor is tiny, as opposed to a big full frame sensor, little tiny lens opening. There's just, but I'm going off on a tangent. Now, I think that Canon lenses are fantastic. There's a reason why there's a whole slew of adapters for Sony that let people use their Canon lenses. Canon lenses are great. Sony lenses are great too, but Canon lenses just, there's something to be said about a Canon lens. So the next thing that I want to talk about is battery life, and that's a huge one. Batteries in this little camera are pretty tiny. Here is the battery from this camera, tiny. Here's the battery from this camera, much larger. You're going to get a lot more battery life, a lot more usage out of a Canon battery than you're going to get out of a Sony battery. I mean, this battery here is 1800 milliamps. This battery here is 1020 milliamps. So this is darn near double the capacity of a battery that is available in the Sony. Now, you know, when I was shooting Canon, I'd have a battery grip and I'd have 2 batteries on my camera and I could shoot all day. I could even shoot some video and you know, not even worry about running out of batteries. With Sony, I definitely have to carry extra batteries. Even on my camera where I have a battery grip that takes 2 batteries, I still need to have extra batteries. Battery life is just not so much of an issue on Canon as it is on Sony. Now, you know, one of the things that I wish that you could do on this particular Canon is actually charge the battery by plugging in a cable into the camera. From what I know, you can't do that on any Canon, but you can on a Sony. So, I mean, maybe that's something that I should put in the other video. But anyways, battery life way better on your Canon than you're gonna get out of your Sony. Miles may vary depending on the way that you use your camera too, so keep that in mind. Autofocus is the next thing. You know, autofocus is really good on these Sony cameras. They've gotten, you know, they've got some really good features there. There's more points of focus typically on these mirrorless cameras than there are on these mirrored cameras, DSLR style cameras. But autofocus just still seems to be faster, like the process is faster, you know, of achieving autofocus, especially with better lenses. Autofocus is really fast on a Canon, and then more specifically in 2 different ways. When something is moving really fast through the scene, typically following it and achieving autofocus with a DSLR has better results. The Sonys and the mirrorless cameras are getting a lot better. They have came a long way over the last probably 2 years, but Canon still much faster at achieving focus on those fast-moving objects and much better at achieving autofocus in low-light situations than the mirrorless cameras. The mirrorless cameras tend to struggle and search a little bit. Not that the DSLR-style cameras are perfect, but they definitely are a bit better than the mirrorless cameras. The next thing, which is a huge one for me, is the articulating screen. The Sony screen does articulate a little bit, but it just goes kind of up and down. It doesn't move around or articulate really in any other way. You know, you see people using this camera as like a good vlogging or selfie camera because they can see the screen and keep their shot framed up. You know, you can hold this camera down super low or flip the screen and hold it up really high and see what's going on because this screen articulates in so many different ways than the Sony does. And that is a huge feature for me, I think, over, you know, the Sony. The Sony camera, you can't, you know, it doesn't flip up, it doesn't flip around, you just can't. It's not a good vlogging camera, I guess you could say, for those of you who do that. It's also not a good selfie camera, and you know, the articulating screen still only pops down a certain amount. It does pop up completely, but it only pops down a certain amount as well. It would pop down a little bit more if I didn't have this plate on it, but it still doesn't go completely flat like the Canon does. And then the last thing is camera size. You know, in the other video I talked about the benefits of having a small camera, but there's definitely benefits of having a camera that's a little bit larger with a little more heft to it. Now, when you're shooting handheld, having something a little heavier helps you hold it more steady. So there's something to be said about having a little bit of weight in your hand. Also, the grip is bigger, so those of us with really big hand, the grip just fills the hand a lot better than this camera. Now with this a6500, they beefed up the camera body a little bit more, and it definitely gives you more to hold on to, but it's not something I could wrap my hand around and feel really secure. If I have to grip this camera hard, my hand is hitting all sorts of buttons. Whereas with this camera, it fits the hand really well, and it's much more secure than this a6500 or even the a6300, which has even a slightly smaller camera body to it. You know, so it's size. There's something to be said about that. Maybe having a little bit bigger of a camera body is a benefit over having something small and light. So you can argue both ways on that, and that's why I talked about camera size in both of these videos. So, you know, there are other things that you can talk about, you know, with these cameras. You know, one could say that the Sony has more customizable buttons than, but you can nitpick little things, but really what it comes down to is what you want it for, what you're going to use it for, and what you just feel most comfortable with. If you have been using Canons for a long time and you don't really feel like learning a new platform, there's really no need to change. I mean, I changed from Canon to Sony because I wanted low light performance in my cameras. That was the main thing for me. I didn't care about the size of the camera. I didn't care about whether it was mirrorless or not. I cared about the camera performing really well in low light, and Canon's catching up again, but they're still just not as good in low light performance as the Sonys, and especially my a7R2 and the a7S2 camera that I have. You just can't hang with it just can't, you know, Sony or Canon cannot hang with it. So, you know, that's going to do it for this video. I think, you know, I want to hear from you because a lot of you have opinions as well, features that are important to you that maybe one versus the other doesn't have, or maybe you want my opinion on a feature that you know you're going to need and I didn't talk about it. I'd love to answer that for you in the comment section below. If you want to check out the other video, the link should show up any second for that. And I've also provided links to both of these cameras in the description below so you can see their pricing and all that good stuff on Amazon and decide to buy one there if that's something that you're looking to do. So subscribe to our channel so that you get notified when we put out new videos. We talk about cameras a lot on Ditch Auto and just becoming better photographers by learning how to use our cameras better in different ways. So subscribing to our channel will get you notified when those videos come out. Give us a thumbs up if you liked this video and found it useful. We hope to see you again here soon on Ditch Auto. Thanks a lot.